Elena Vasquez walked through the massive halls of the Galactic Council building on Nexus Prime. The ceiling stretched so high above her that she could barely see it. Alien beings from dozens of worlds moved past her, some floating, others walking, on legs she couldn't count. Their voices created a strange music of clicks, whistles, and sounds her human ears could barely understand. She had been Earth's ambassador to the Galactic Council for 3 years now. 3 long years of being treated like a child at an adult gathering. The other species looked at humans the way adults might look at a toddler who had just learned to walk but was trying to run. Elena reached the council chamber and took her seat at the human delegation table. It was smaller than the others, placed near the back of the room. The message was clear. Humans were new here, and new meant unimportant. The Zephyrian delegation sat at the front of the chamber. Their table was made of polished metal that gleamed under the artificial suns that lit the room. Admiral Kethavar, their military leader, stood nearly 8 feet tall. His blue-gray skin looked like armor, and his forearms moved with practiced grace. When he spoke, his voice rumbled like distant thunder. "The Council will address the matter of territorial expansion in Sector 7, Kethavar announced. "The Zephyrian hegemony requires additional space for our growing population. We have identified 17 worlds currently claimed by the human species that would serve our needs." Elena felt her stomach tighten, but she kept her face calm. She had learned early in her diplomatic career that showing emotion in the Council was seen as weakness. The Crystalline Collective representative spoke next. Their species looked like living gemstones, beautiful and cold. When they communicated, light patterns danced across their crystal bodies. A translator device converted these patterns into words. The collective agrees with the Zephyrian assessment. These worlds are barely developed by human standards. The humans have established only small colonies with primitive infrastructure. The Zephyrians could make much better use of these planets. Elena stood slowly. "With respect, honored delegates, those 17 worlds are home to over 40 million human beings. These are not empty planets. They are established colonies with families, communities, and vital industries." A ripple of what might have been laughter moved through the chamber. The sound came from dozens of different species, creating an unsettling chorus of alien amusement. Kethavar turned his attention to Elena. His eyes were deep red, like pools of blood. "Ambassador Vasquez, your species has had these worlds for less than 50 standard years. In galactic terms, you arrived yesterday. The Zephyrian hegemony has been expanding across the stars for over 10,000 years. We understand how to properly use planetary resources." "Perhaps," Elena replied carefully. "But these are still inhabited worlds with established human populations. Surely the Council can find a solution that doesn't require displacing millions of people." The ethereal consortium delegate floated forward. Their species had no solid form that Elena could see, just a shimmering cloud of energy contained in a humanoid shape. When they spoke, their voice seemed to come from everywhere at once. "The young species often struggle with the realities of galactic politics," the ethereal said. "Resources are limited. Territory must be allocated efficiently. Sentiment cannot override practical necessity." Elena had heard variations of this speech many times before. The established galactic powers saw humans as children playing with toys they didn't understand. Earth's military was considered primitive by galactic standards. Human ships were smaller than most alien vessels. Human weapons used simpler technology. Human military doctrine seemed chaotic and poorly organized compared to the rigid hierarchies other species preferred. What frustrated Elena most was that the other species weren't entirely wrong. Humanity had achieved faster-than-light travel, remarkably quickly compared to most species. Most civilizations took thousands of years to develop FTL technology. Humans had done it in less than 2 centuries after their first powered flight. This rapid advancement made other species suspicious and condescending at the same time. "Your species shows promise," Kethavar continued, his tone almost paternal. "But you lack the experience necessary for major territorial holdings. These 17 worlds would be better served under Zephyrian administration. We are prepared to offer relocation assistance for your colonists." "Relocation assistance," Elena repeated. "You mean you would forcibly remove 40 million humans from their homes?" We would provide transportation and basic supplies, the Admiral replied. The process would be humane and efficient. Your colonists would be relocated to less strategically important worlds where they could continue their development without interfering with galactic priorities. Elena looked around the chamber. Hundreds of alien faces stared back at her. Some showed curiosity, others boredom. A few displayed what might have been sympathy. But none showed support. The message was clear. Humanity was alone in this. I will need to consult with my government, Elena said finally. Of course, Kethvar replied. We understand that your species requires time to process complex decisions. The Council will reconvene in 30 standard days to hear Earth's response. As the session ended, Elena remained in her seat while the other delegates filed out. She watched Kethvar speaking with other military leaders from various species. Their body language was relaxed, confident. They were discussing something that amused them. Elena activated her personal communicator and sent a coded message to Earth. The message was simple. Package delivery required, standard timeline. To anyone intercepting the communication, it would sound like routine diplomatic correspondence. But back on Earth, very specific people would understand exactly what those words meant. Over the next several days, Elena attended various diplomatic functions and informal meetings. The pattern was always the same. Alien diplomats would approach her with expressions of sympathy, but their words carried underlying messages of inevitability. It's unfortunate about your colonies, said the Aquatic Alliance representative over dinner. But perhaps this is an opportunity for your species to focus on developing your core worlds more thoroughly. The Zephyrians are not unreasonable, mentioned a delegate from the Insectoid Confederation during a trade discussion. They have managed displaced populations before. Your colonists would likely be treated well. Resistance would be unwise, suggested an envoy from the Machine Collective during what was supposed to be a cultural exchange meeting. The Zephyrian military is quite formidable. A peaceful resolution serves everyone's interests. Elena smiled and nodded and gave non-committal responses to all of them. But inside, she was taking careful notes. Every conversation revealed something about galactic politics, military capabilities, or alliance structures. Information that would be very useful to the right people back on Earth. On the 10th day after the ultimatum, Elena received a message from Admiral Kethvar requesting a private meeting. She found him in his personal quarters aboard the Zephyrian flagship, a massive vessel that dwarfed any human ship Elena had ever seen. The Admiral's quarters were designed to impress. The walls were covered with weapons from dozens of worlds the Zephyrians had conquered. Battle banners hung from the ceiling. A holographic display showed the positions of Zephyrian fleets throughout the galaxy. Ambassador Vasquez, Kethvar said, gesturing for her to sit. I asked you here because I respect your species. Humans show great potential, but potential means nothing without proper guidance. What kind of guidance did you have in mind? Elena asked. The Zephyrian hegemony has been watching humanity for some time. Your species has interesting qualities: adaptability, creativity, persistence. These traits could be valuable in the right context. Kethvar moved to the holographic display and manipulated the controls. The image changed to show human space, all the worlds where humans had established colonies or outposts. Your current expansion is haphazard, he continued. You claim territory without proper military support. You establish colonies without adequate defense systems. You spread your resources too thin across too many worlds. Perhaps our approach is different from yours, Elena suggested. Different, yes. Also doomed to failure. Kethvar touched another control and red symbols appeared throughout human space. These represent potential threats to your colonies. Pirates, hostile species, resource conflicts. Without proper military backing, your expansion will collapse within a century. Elena studied the display. The red symbols were numerous and spread throughout human territory. If Kethvar was correct, humanity was surrounded by potential enemies. However, the Admiral continued, under Zephyrian protection, human colonies could thrive. We would provide military security in exchange for certain resources and territorial agreements. Your species could focus on what it does best, innovation and adaptation, while we handle the complexities of galactic defense. And the price for this protection? Elena asked. Reasonable territorial adjustments. The 17 worlds we discussed would be a starting point. Over time, as your species matures, we might renegotiate based on changing circumstances. Elena stood and walked closer to the holographic display. She could see Earth at the center of human space, a small blue dot surrounded by the vast darkness of the galaxy. From this perspective, humanity looked very small and very alone. Your offer is generous, she said carefully. But I cannot make such decisions without consulting my government. Of course not. I would be disappointed if you could. But consider this. The galaxy is not a safe place for young species without protection. Many civilizations have expanded too quickly and found themselves facing threats they could not handle alone. Elena thought about the message she had sent to Earth 10 days ago. By now, certain preparations would already be underway. Plans that had been developed over years of careful observation and planning. I appreciate your concern for humanity's welfare, she told Cathvar, and I will certainly convey your offer to Earth. Good. I hope your leaders are wise enough to see the advantages of cooperation over confrontation. As Elena left the Zephyrian flagship, she reflected on the Admiral's words. Cooperation over confrontation. The irony was that humanity had been cooperating for years, just not in the way the galaxy expected. 3 weeks remained before the Council would reconvene to hear Earth's response. Throughout the galaxy, alien civilizations went about their business, confident that the human problem would be resolved quickly and quietly. After all, what could one young species do against the combined might of the galactic community? Elena returned to her quarters and composed another message to Earth. This one was longer and more detailed, containing her observations about Zephyrian, military doctrine, alliance structures, and potential weaknesses she had identified during her conversation with Admiral Cathvar. As she encrypted the message using codes that no alien species had ever seen, Elena allowed herself a small smile. The galaxy was about to learn something important about humanity. They had been watching the wrong things and asking the wrong questions. The real question wasn't whether humans could adapt to galactic civilization. The real question was whether galactic civilization was ready for humanity. The Galactic Council chamber buzzed with activity as delegates took their seats. Elena walked to the human table with steady steps, her face showing nothing of the tension she felt inside. Today, Earth would give its response to the Zephyrian ultimatum. 30 days had passed since Admiral Cathvar demanded that humanity abandon 17 frontier worlds. Elena carried a simple datapad with her. The other delegates probably assumed it contained humanity's surrender terms. After all, what choice did Earth have? The Zephyrian hegemony commanded thousands of warships. The entire human fleet consisted of maybe 200 vessels, most of them small escort ships or cargo transports converted for military use. Admiral Cathvar stood at the center of the chamber, his forearms spread wide in a gesture of authority. The 30-day period has concluded. We are here to receive Earth's response to the Council's territorial adjustment proposal. Elena rose from her seat. The chamber fell silent. Hundreds of alien eyes focused on her, waiting to hear humanity accept its place in the galactic order. The government of Earth has carefully considered the proposal, Elena began. Her voice carried clearly through the chamber's translation systems. After extensive consultation with our colonial administrations and military leadership, we have reached a decision. She paused, looking around the chamber at the assembled delegates. Some leaned forward with curiosity. Others looked bored, as if the outcome was already obvious. Our response is no. The word hung in the air like a physical thing. For a moment, nobody moved. Then a wave of surprised chatter swept through the chamber. Elena heard clicks, whistles, and electronic sounds as dozens of species reacted to humanity's answer. Admiral Cathvar's red eyes fixed on Elena. Ambassador, perhaps there was a translation error. Did you say no? I did. Earth declines the Council's proposal. We will not abandon our colonies. We will not relocate our citizens. We will not surrender sovereign human territory to the Zephyrian hegemony. The chamber erupted into chaos. Delegates stood and argued with each other in dozens of languages. The translation system struggled to keep up with the flood of alien voices. Kethvar raised one of his massive hands for silence. When the chamber quieted, his voice was cold as deep space. Ambassador Vasquez, I fear your government has made a grave error. The Council was offering your species a peaceful solution. That offer will not remain available indefinitely. Elena met his gaze without flinching. Earth understands the Council's position. We respectfully disagree. This is madness, declared the crystalline collective representative. Light patterns flashed rapidly across their crystal body, indicating extreme agitation. The human military cannot possibly defend 17 worlds against Zephyrian forces. Perhaps not, Elena replied calmly. But we intend to try. The ethereal consortium delegate floated forward. Young species, you do not understand what you are choosing. The Zephyrian military has conquered hundreds of worlds. Their fleet could reduce your colonies to ash within days. Elena looked at the floating energy being. The people of those colonies are prepared to accept that risk rather than abandon their homes. Admiral Kethvar stepped closer to Elena's table. Even sitting, she had to crane her neck to look up at him. Ambassador, I will ask one final time. Are you certain this is Earth's final answer? It is. Then the Council has no choice but to authorize a police action to resolve this situation. Effective immediately, Zephyrian forces are authorized to use whatever means necessary to secure the disputed territories. Elena nodded. Earth will inform our colonial governments to expect visitors. As the Council session ended, Elena remained in her seat while the other delegates filed out. Many of them avoided looking at her. She supposed they felt sorry for her species. Within a few weeks, the Zephyrian fleet would arrive at the disputed worlds. A brief, one-sided battle would follow. Then humanity would learn its place in the galactic order. Elena activated her communicator and sent a single word to Earth. Approved. Across human space, that word triggered a series of events that had been planned for years. On the colony world of New Geneva, farmer Jacob Mueller was working in his fields when his communicator chimed. The message was brief. Harvest season beginning early this year. Jacob nodded and put away his farming tools. He walked to his barn and pressed his hand against what looked like a normal wall panel. The panel recognized his biometrics and slid aside, revealing a hidden armory. Jacob had been many things in his life. A farmer was the most recent. Before that, he had been Captain Jacob Mueller of the Earth Defense Force Special Operations Division. The farming was real. He genuinely loved working the soil and growing crops. But farming had also been perfect. Cover for other activities. On the industrial world of New Birmingham, factory supervisor Maria Santos received a similar message. She locked down her production lines and gathered her senior staff. To outside observers, the factory produced agricultural equipment and mining tools. The hidden sections of the facility told a different story. Time to switch to wartime production, Maria told her team. Priority 1 protocols are now in effect. Her workers moved with practiced efficiency. Walls slid aside to reveal machinery that had never appeared on any inspection report. Within hours, the factory was producing very different equipment than what its official manifests claimed. Similar scenes played out across human space. Scientists who were supposed to be studying alien geology suddenly revealed advanced weapons research programs. Merchant captains who had spent years mapping trade routes began moving to predetermined positions. Mining operations that had been extracting ordinary metals from asteroids stopped bothering to hide the military-grade materials they had actually been producing. Admiral Sarah Chen stood in the hidden command center beneath Luna City on Earth's moon. The facility had been carved out of solid rock over a period of 15 years. No alien sensors had ever detected it. As far as the galaxy knew, Earth's military headquarters was a modest building in Geneva. Sarah was 54 years old and had never attended a diplomatic function or appeared at any official ceremony. According to public records, she was a mid-level logistics officer. The galaxy's intelligence services had extensive files on Earth's supposed military leadership. Sarah's name appeared nowhere in those files. Status report, Sarah said to her. Staff. Phase 1 assets are moving to position, reported Colonel Kim Martinez. All ghost fleets have departed their hiding positions. Stealth networks are fully operational. Zephyrian fleet movement? Sarah asked. Admiral Kethavar is assembling 500 capital ships for the police action. Standard Zephyrian doctrine, overwhelming force to ensure quick victory. Sarah nodded. 500 ships was exactly what their projections had predicted. The Zephyrians always used the same tactics because those tactics had always worked. Timeline for fleet arrival at target systems? She asked. 18 days, replied Commander David Okafor. They're taking the most direct routes. No attempt at deception or surprise. They expect this to be a simple pacification operation. And our preparations? Ghost Fleet Alpha is already in position around the primary target system. Ghost Fleets Beta through Delta will reach their assigned positions within 72 hours. All colonial defense networks have been activated. Sarah studied the holographic display that showed human space. Red icons marked the 17 disputed worlds. Blue icons showed the positions of various human assets, or at least the assets that were visible to alien surveillance. What the display didn't show were the green icons. Those represented assets that had been hidden from galactic observation for decades. Ships that had never appeared in any official registry. Weapons platforms disguised as asteroid mining stations. Defense networks that had been built in secret and powered down until needed. Communication status? Sarah asked. All quantum entanglement networks are operational. We have instantaneous communication with every system in human space. Signal interception protocols are active. We're monitoring all Zephyrian military communications. Sarah allowed herself a small smile. Quantum entanglement communication was supposedly beyond human technological capabilities. The galactic community assumed Earth was still using primitive faster-than-light radio systems that could be easily monitored and disrupted. Alien intelligence assessment? She asked. They know nothing. Zephyrian intelligence believes they have complete information about human military capabilities. Their tactical plans assume standard defensive doctrine with conventional weapons. Sarah walked to the main display and manipulated the controls. The view changed to show the galaxy as alien civilizations saw it. A vast collection of established powers with humanity occupying a small corner of space, protected by a laughably inadequate military. Psychological warfare preparations? She asked. All crews have been briefed on standard protocols. First contact specialists are standing by. Cultural analysis teams have prepared appropriate response strategies for each alien species. Sarah nodded. This would be the most important aspect of the coming engagement. Humanity didn't just need to win the battle, they needed to send the right message to the galaxy. Begin Phase 2, Sarah ordered. Across human space, the final preparations began. Ships that had been hidden for years emerged from their concealment. Weapon systems that had never been tested outside of simulation began their activation sequences. Personnel who had spent decades living false identities began revealing their true purposes. In the colony system of New Hebrides, Captain Elena Rodriguez stood on the bridge of what appeared to be a cargo transport called the Peaceful Trader. The ship's registration showed it as a simple merchant vessel carrying agricultural supplies between colonies. Elena touched a series of controls on her command console. The ship began to change. External panels slid aside to reveal weapon systems. The cargo bay opened to deploy fighter craft. Additional hull sections extended to triple the ship's apparent size. Within minutes, the Peaceful Trader had transformed into the HSS Retribution, a heavy battlecruiser that officially did not exist. All systems operational, Captain, reported her tactical officer. Stealth field is holding steady. Enemy sensors show us as a small transport. Very good, Elena replied. Maintain position. We wait for the guests to arrive. Similar transformations were occurring throughout the disputed systems. Mining stations revealed themselves as weapons platforms. Survey ships became destroyers. Even some of the human colonists weren't what they seemed. Many were retired military personnel who had volunteered for what they knew might be a one-way mission. On Earth, Elena Vasquez prepared to return to her quarters after the difficult council session. Her work as a diplomat was finished for now. Other people would handle what came next. As she walked through the alien city, Elena reflected on the past 3 years. Every dinner party she had attended, every cultural exchange, every seemingly casual conversation had served a purpose. Humanity had learned everything they needed to know about their potential enemies. The galaxy had been watching humans and thinking they understood what they saw. A young species growing quickly but carelessly, primitive military technology, chaotic organization, no understanding of proper galactic politics. They had been looking at the wrong things. While alien intelligence services were cataloging Earth's official military assets and analyzing human diplomatic strategies, they had missed the most important factor. Humans were very good at hiding things. In 18 days, the Zephyrian fleet would arrive at the disputed systems expecting to find frightened colonists protected by a handful of outdated patrol ships. Instead, they would discover what humanity had really been doing for the past 50 years. The galaxy was about to receive an education. Admiral Kethvar stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Hegemony's Fist, watching the final approach to the New Hebrides system. Around his massive vessel, 499 other Zephyrian warships maintained perfect formation. The fleet stretched across space like a metal constellation, weapons powered and shields raised. This would be the largest military action the Zephyrians had undertaken in decades. Not because they expected serious resistance, but because the galaxy was watching. When the humans were crushed, other young species would remember this lesson. "Sensor readings, Commander?" Kethvar asked. "Minimal human presence detected, Admiral," replied Commander Theknol. 6 small patrol vessels in high orbit around the primary colony world. No capital ships. No defensive installations of significant threat level. Kethvar nodded. Exactly what their intelligence had predicted. The humans had apparently decided to make a symbolic gesture rather than abandon their colonies, but they lacked the military strength to mount serious resistance. "Communications from the human vessels?" he asked. "That's unusual, Admiral. They're broadcasting on open channels. Surrender terms?" "No, sir. They're talking to us." Kethvar turned to stare at his communications officer. "Explain." The bridge speakers crackled to life with a human voice speaking accented but clear Zephyrian. "Zephyrian Fleet, this is Captain Elena Rodriguez of the New Hebrides Defense Force. Welcome to our system. That's quite an impressive formation you've got there." Kethvar's forearms tensed with confusion. In 30 years of military service, he had never heard anything like this. Enemy forces typically issued challenges, surrender, demands, or threats. They did not offer casual greetings. Another human voice joined the conversation. "Holy stars, look at the size of that flagship. That thing must be 3 kilometers long. I bet the engine room alone is bigger than my entire ship." "Are they mocking us?" Commander Theknol asked quietly. Before Kethvar could answer, a third human voice chimed in. "Captain Martinez here. Admiral Kethvar, I've read about your campaigns in the Outer Rim territories. That flanking maneuver you used against the Keltharian rebels was brilliant. Required perfect timing and coordination." Kethvar found himself at a loss for words. The humans were discussing military history as if this were an academic conference, rather than a combat situation. Admiral Rodriguez calling Admiral Kethvar directly. Came another transmission. "Sir, I hope you don't mind the informality, but we've got some questions about Zephyrian fleet tactics. My tactical officer is writing a paper on comparative military doctrine, and we'd love to get the perspective of someone with your experience." "This is psychological warfare," Theknol said. "They're trying to confuse us." Kethvar activated his own communication system. "Human vessels, you will stand down immediately and prepare for boarding. Resistance is futile." "Oh, we're not planning to resist," Captain Rodriguez replied cheerfully. "Well, not exactly. We're definitely going to fight, but that's different from resisting. Resistance implies we expect to lose." "You are outnumbered 500 to 6, Kethvar growled. 83 to 1, actually, corrected another human voice. "We did the math. Those are pretty steep odds." Good thing we didn't come here to play fair. Cathvar looked at his tactical display. The 6 human ships were maintaining their positions in high orbit, making no attempt to flee or form defensive formations. Their behavior made no sense according to any military doctrine he understood. All ships, prepare to engage, he ordered. Target the human vessels. We'll make this quick. Human ships are moving, Admiral, reported his tactical officer. Cathvar watched his display as the 6 human vessels began evasive maneuvers. But these weren't the desperate, panicked movements he expected from an outmatched force. The ships moved with fluid grace, performing maneuvers that should have been impossible given their apparent size and mass. How are they moving like that? Technol asked. Before anyone could answer, the human ships did something unprecedented. They began to change shape. External hull sections slid aside to reveal weapon systems that hadn't appeared on any sensor. Scan. Additional hull segments extended, tripling the apparent size of each vessel. What had appeared to be 6 small patrol ships revealed themselves as 6 massive battlecruisers. Sensor error, Cathvar said immediately. Recalibrate all detection systems. Sensors are functioning normally, Admiral. The human ships were using some form of stealth technology to mask their true configuration. Cathvar stared at his display as it updated to show the human vessel's actual specifications. Each ship was larger than a Zephyrian heavy cruiser and packed with weapon systems he didn't recognize. Admiral, came Captain Rodriguez's voice again. I hope you don't mind the deception. We wanted this to be a fair fight, so we evened the odds a little bit. 6 against 500 is hardly even odds, Cathvar replied. Oh, you're absolutely right. That's why we brought friends. Space around the Zephyrian fleet erupted with new contacts. Ships materialized out of nothing, their stealth systems deactivating to reveal dozens then hundreds of human vessels. They appeared in perfect attack positions, surrounding the Zephyrian formation from multiple directions. Impossible, Technol whispered. Where did they come from? Those asteroid mining stations, reported the tactical officer. They're not mining stations, they're weapons platforms. The cargo vessels throughout the system are military ships. Even some of the orbital habitats are armed installations. Cathavar's display now showed over 300 human military vessels in the system, with more appearing every second as stealth fields deactivated. The humans had turned the entire star system into a trap. Human fleet strength now exceeds our own, the tactical officer reported. And Admiral, their weapons are powering up. All ships evasive action, Cathvar ordered. Return fire immediately. The Zephyrian fleet began to maneuver, their formations breaking apart as captains tried to respond to threats from multiple directions. Weapons fire erupted across the system as 500 Zephyrian warships engaged with an enemy they had underestimated by several orders of magnitude. But something was wrong with the human attack pattern. The individual ships were fighting well, but their coordination was perfect in a way that made no sense. Zephyrian vessels found themselves caught in crossfires that required split-second timing to execute. Human ships provided covering fire for each other with precision that suggested instantaneous communication. How are they coordinating like this? Cathvar demanded. Our intelligence indicated humans use hierarchical command structures like every other species. Admiral, I'm detecting quantum entanglement communication signatures throughout their fleet. They're using instantaneous communication. That's impossible. Quantum entanglement communication requires technology beyond human capabilities. Apparently, not, sir. The battle continued, but it was becoming clear that this was not the simple pacification operation the Zephyrians had planned. Human weapons were cutting through Zephyrian shields like they were made of paper. Human ships absorbed damage that should have destroyed them and continued fighting. Admiral, came Captain Rodriguez's voice again. You might want to order your ships to surrender. We're trying to keep casualties to a minimum, but your people are making that difficult. Zephyrians do not surrender to inferior species, Cathvar snarled. Inferior? The human captain sounded genuinely puzzled. Admiral, with respect, you brought 500 ships to fight 6 patrol boats. We brought 6 patrol boats to fight 500 warships. Which one of us understood the tactical situation better? Before Cathvar could respond, Alarms began, sounding throughout his flagship. Admiral, we're being targeted by some kind of directed energy weapon. Shields are failing across multiple sections. Source? Unknown. The weapon signature doesn't match anything in our database. On his display, Kethvar watched as human weapons systematically disabled Zephyrian ships. Not destroyed, disabled. The humans were deliberately avoiding fatal damage, instead targeting propulsion systems, weapons arrays, and shield generators. They're trying to capture our ships intact, Technol observed. Why would they want our ships? Kethvar asked. Admiral, came another human transmission, this time from a different captain. This is Commander Sarah Mitchell. We're prepared to accept the surrender of any Zephyrian vessels that wish to avoid further damage. Your crews will be treated according to galactic warfare conventions. And if we refuse? Kethvar asked. Then we'll continue disabling your ships until you change your mind. We have time. Kethvar looked at his tactical display. In less than an hour of fighting, the Zephyrian fleet had lost nearly 200 ships. Not destroyed, but disabled and helpless. The humans had suffered minimal casualties. This is impossible, he said. Our intelligence indicated that human military technology was decades behind galactic standards. Admiral Kethvar, came Captain Rodriguez's voice again. Would you like to know why your intelligence was wrong? Despite himself, Kethvar found himself curious. Explain. For 50 years, every human diplomat, trader, tourist, and cultural exchange student has been gathering information about galactic military capabilities. We've studied your tactics, analyzed your technology, and identified your weaknesses. Meanwhile, we've been very careful about what information we allowed you to gather about us. You've been spying on us. We prefer to call it aggressive intelligence gathering. The point is, we know everything about how you fight. Your standard formation patterns, your preferred weapon types, your tactical doctrine. We've been studying it all for decades. Kethvar realized with growing horror that the human was right. Every diplomatic contact, every trade negotiation, every cultural exchange had been an intelligence operation. While the galaxy had been looking down on humanity as primitives, the humans had been systematically preparing for exactly this situation. But how did you develop such advanced weapons? He asked. Oh, we didn't, Rodriguez replied cheerfully. These are your weapons. We just figured out how to make them work better. Impossible. Admiral, humanity has been buying, trading for, and occasionally stealing galactic technology for 50 years. We've reverse-engineered everything from Zephyrian plasma cannons to crystalline shield matrices. Then we improved them. Kethvar's tactical officer looked up from his station. Admiral, analysis of their weapon signatures confirms it. They're using modified versions of our own technology. The improvements are significant. The thing about humans, Rodriguez continued, is that we're really good at taking existing technology and finding new ways to use it. We've had 50 years to study galactic military hardware, 50 years to figure out how to make it better. Surrender, came another human transmission from a different ship. This is Admiral Sarah Chen, commanding the Human Defense Force. Admiral Kethvar, you have fought with honor, but this battle is over. Order your remaining ships to stand down. Kethvar looked around his bridge at the faces of his crew. They were all watching him, waiting for orders. Through the viewports, he could see disabled Zephyrian ships drifting helplessly through space. Human vessels moved among them like predators, but they weren't attacking the helpless ships. They were providing assistance to damaged vessels and rescuing survivors. Admiral Chen, Kethvar said finally, I request terms of surrender. Full military honors for all Zephyrian personnel, medical treatment for wounded, safe transport back to Zephyrian space for any crew members who wish to return. Your ships will be impounded but not destroyed. And the territorial dispute? The 17 worlds remain under human control. The galaxy will need to find a different solution to the Zephyrian population expansion problem. Kethvar closed his eyes. In 3 hours, humanity had destroyed the largest Zephyrian military operation in decades. More importantly, They had done it with tactical precision that revealed sophisticated military planning and technological capabilities far beyond what anyone had suspected. "All Zephyrian vessels," he broadcast on the fleet frequency. "This is Admiral Kethavar. Stand down all weapons and prepare for surrender procedures." As his defeated fleet powered down their weapons, Kethavar found himself wondering what else the galaxy had been wrong about regarding humanity. If their assessment of human military capabilities had been this far off the mark, what other mistakes had they made? "Admiral," came Captain Rodriguez's voice one more time. "For what it's worth, your people fought well. We studied your tactical manuals for years and you executed them perfectly. But you were prepared for our tactics. We were prepared for everyone's tactics. This wasn't about you specifically. This was about establishing that humanity belongs in the galactic community as equals, not subjects." Kethavar understood then that he had been part of something much larger than a territorial dispute. Humanity had used this battle to send a message to every species in the galaxy. The message was simple: underestimate humans at your own peril. The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened just 18 hours after the first reports reached Nexus Prime. Elena Vasquez sat at the human delegation table, no longer relegated to the back of the chamber. Someone had moved her table to the center of the room while she was away. The atmosphere in the council chamber was electric with tension. Delegates whispered urgently to each other in dozens of languages. Translation devices worked overtime, filling the air with overlapping conversations about the impossible news from the New Hebrides system. Elena had arrived early and spent the time observing her fellow delegates. The Zephyrian emergency representative looked shaken. The crystalline collective's light patterns flickered with agitation. Even the normally composed ethereal consortium seemed unsettled, their energy forms fluctuating more than usual. Chancellor Vex Moran of the Galactic Council called the session to order. The ancient being's voice carried the authority of millennia of experience. "The Council has received disturbing reports from the New Hebrides system. We require clarification of these events." Admiral Kethavar's image appeared as a hologram in the center of the chamber. The proud Zephyrian looked older than Elena remembered. His usual commanding presence was replaced by something she had never seen in him before: uncertainty. "Honorable delegates," Kethavar began, "I must report the complete failure of the police action against human colonies. The Zephyrian fleet of 500 vessels encountered organized resistance that resulted in the capture or disabling of our entire force." Shocked murmurs rippled through the chamber. The Insectoid Confederation delegate clicked rapidly, their species equivalent of gasping. Several other representatives stood to get a better view of the hologram. "Admiral," Chancellor Vex Moran said carefully, "please clarify your statement. Are you saying that 6 human patrol vessels defeated 500 Zephyrian warships?" "No, Chancellor. We encountered significantly more than 6 vessels. Current estimates suggest the humans deployed over 400 ships in the New Hebrides system alone." "Impossible," declared the Machine Collective representative. Their synthetic voice carried electronic overtones of disbelief. "Human fleet. Strength is well documented. Total human military assets number fewer than 200 vessels across all their territory." Elena stood slowly. All eyes in the chamber turned to her. "If I may address the council?" Chancellor Vex Moran nodded. "The floor recognizes Ambassador Vasquez." "Thank you, Chancellor. The Machine Collective is correct. The official human fleet consists of fewer than 200 vessels. However, that represents only our publicly acknowledged military assets." The chamber fell silent. Elena could feel the weight of hundreds of alien gazes focused on her. "For the past 50 years," she continued, "humanity has maintained 2 separate military forces. The first is the fleet you've all been monitoring, our official military with documented ships, public bases, and transparent command structures. The second has remained hidden until now." "A shadow fleet," whispered the Aquatic Alliance representative. "We prefer the term strategic reserve," Elena replied. "Admiral Chen, please join us." A new hologram materialized beside Elena's table. The woman who appeared was human, middle-aged, wearing a military uniform that no alien intelligence service had ever catalogued. Her insignia were unfamiliar, and her face was not in any galactic database. "This is Admiral Sarah Chen, Supreme, Commander of the Human Defense Force," Elena announced. "She has requested permission to address the Council regarding recent events." Admiral Chen stepped forward. "Honorable delegates, I apologize for the deception, but it was necessary for our species' survival. For 50 years, humanity has been preparing for the possibility of galactic conflict while maintaining the appearance of military weakness." "Explain," demanded the Zephyrian representative. "Gladly. When humanity first achieved faster-than-light travel, we immediately recognized that we were entering a galaxy dominated by established military powers. We had two choices: remain weak and hope for protection, or become strong while appearing weak." Admiral Chen gestured, and a holographic display appeared above the chamber. It showed human space as alien intelligence services understood it. A modest collection of colonies protected by a small, outdated fleet. "This is what you've been seeing," Chen continued. "Now let me show you reality." The display changed dramatically. Hundreds of new ship icons appeared throughout human space. Hidden bases revealed themselves on supposedly uninhabited worlds. Weapons platforms emerged from asteroid belts where alien sensors had detected only mining operations. "My God," breathed the Ethereal Consortium representative. "Current Human Defense Force assets include over 1,500 combat vessels," Chen continued. "These ships have been constructed in hidden shipyards using materials and technology acquired through 50 years of careful intelligence gathering." She manipulated the holographic controls, and the display zoomed in on individual systems. "Every human colony world has defensive installations that were built in secret and powered down to avoid detection. Every trade route through human space is covered by hidden sensor networks. Every diplomatic facility we've built contains intelligence gathering equipment." The chamber erupted in angry voices. Delegates stood and shouted accusations in dozens of languages. Elena waited calmly for the noise to subside. "This is an act of war," declared the Crystalline Collective representative. "Systematic espionage against the entire galactic community." "With respect," Elena replied, "we prefer to call it aggressive information gathering. And it was conducted in response to repeated threats against human colonies and citizens." Chancellor Vexmoran raised his hand for silence. "Admiral Chen, you claim to have been gathering intelligence against Council member species for 50 years. What specific information have you acquired?" Admiral Chen smiled grimly. "Everything." She gestured again, and the display changed to show the Zephyrian hegemony. Military bases, fleet positions, troop movements, and tactical assessments appeared with startling detail. "We know the location of every Zephyrian military installation. We've analyzed their tactical doctrine and identified 17 critical weaknesses in their standard formation patterns. We've reverse-engineered their weapons technology and improved upon it significantly." The display shifted to show crystalline, collective territory. "The Collective's crystal ships are vulnerable to specific resonance frequencies. We've developed weapons that can shatter their molecular structure. We also know the location of their primary crystal growth facilities." "Stop," the Crystalline representative demanded, their light patterns flashing red with alarm. "But Admiral," Chen continued. The display showed the Ethereal Consortium space. "Ethereal phase-shifting technology can be tracked using quantum fluctuation sensors. We've mapped their dimensional pathways and can predict their movement patterns." She looked around the chamber at the increasingly agitated delegates. "The Machine Collective's central processing nodes are vulnerable to quantum viruses we've developed specifically for their architecture. The Aquatic Alliance's mobile cities can be tracked through their thermal signatures. The Insectoid Confederation's hive mind communication can be disrupted using targeted electromagnetic pulses." "Enough," roared the Zephyrian representative. "This is a clear violation of galactic sovereignty. The Council must take immediate action." Elena stood again. "Before anyone calls for sanctions or military action, you might want to hear the rest of Admiral Chen's presentation." The Admiral nodded and changed the display once more. Now it showed the entire galaxy, with detailed tactical assessments of every major power's military capabilities. Based on our analysis, Chen said calmly, the human defense force could achieve military victory against any single galactic power within 6 standard months, against any alliance of 2 powers within 18 months, against the combined forces of all Council member species. She paused, letting the silence stretch. Approximately 4 years, assuming full mobilization of human reserves and the deployment of certain weapon systems we've been developing in secret. The chamber fell completely silent. Elena could hear the hum of life support systems and the whisper of air circulation. No delegate moved or spoke. You're bluffing, the Machine Collective representative said finally. We don't bluff, Elena replied. It's inefficient and potentially counterproductive. Everything Admiral Chen has told you is accurate. Then this is a declaration of human dominance over the galaxy, accused the Ethereal Consortium. Not at all, Elena said. This is a declaration of human equality. For 50 years, the Council has treated humanity as a junior partner, suitable for exploitation but not worthy of respect. We've been told to relocate our colonies, surrender our territory, and accept whatever scraps the established powers were willing to give us. She looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of delegates who had previously ignored or condescended to her. We're not interested in conquering the galaxy. We're interested in being treated as equals. The demonstration at New Hebrides was necessary to establish that humanity has the capability to defend our interests, not a threat to attack others without provocation. Chancellor Vex Moran leaned forward. What exactly does humanity want from the Council? Recognition, Elena said simply. Formal recognition that human colonies have the same rights as any other species' territory, that human citizens deserve the same protections as any other galactic beings, that Earth's voice in Council deliberations carries the same weight as other established powers. And if the Council refuses? Asked the Zephyrian representative. Elena exchanged glances with Admiral Chen. Then humanity will continue to defend our interests using whatever means necessary. We prefer cooperation, but we're prepared for the alternative. Admiral Chen stepped forward. I want to be clear about something. The weapons and tactics we used against the Zephyrian fleet represent only a small fraction of our actual capabilities. What happened at New Hebrides was a demonstration, not a full engagement. She manipulated the holographic controls one more time. The display now showed technical specifications for weapon systems that made several delegates gasp audibly. Quantum, disruptors that can destabilize matter at the subatomic level. Temporal displacement fields that can age enemy ships centuries in seconds. Dimensional artillery that fires projectiles through folded spacetime. Neural disruption weapons that can disable crews without damaging their ships. These technologies are forbidden by galactic law, the Crystalline Collective representative protested. Galactic laws apply to galactic citizens, Elena replied. Humanity was never fully accepted as an equal member of the galactic community. We were treated as a client species under the protection of established powers. Client species have different legal obligations than sovereign powers. This is legal sophistry, accused the Machine Collective. This is practical politics, Elena countered. You can't have it both ways. Either humanity is a sovereign power deserving of respect and equal treatment, or we're a client species operating under different rules. You can't treat us as clients and then expect us to follow sovereign power regulations. Chancellor Vex Moran was silent for a long moment, clearly processing the implications of Elena's statement. Finally, he spoke. The Council will need time to deliberate on these revelations. This session is adjourned pending further discussion among member species. As the delegates began to file out, Elena remained at her table. Several alien representatives approached her, their expressions ranging from curiosity to barely controlled anger. This changes everything, said the Aquatic Alliance delegate quietly. Yes, Elena agreed, it does. The galaxy had spent 50 years thinking they understood humanity's place in the cosmic order. They had been wrong about everything that mattered. Now they had to decide whether to accept the new reality or fight against it. Elena suspected They would choose acceptance. After all, they had just learned that the alternative might be very unpleasant indeed. 3 months after the New Hebrides incident, Elena Vasquez walked through the Galactic Council building for what might be the last time as Earth's ambassador. The corridors looked the same, but everything else had changed. Alien delegates who had once ignored her now nodded respectfully as she passed. Guards who had barely acknowledged her presence now offered formal salutes. The transformation hadn't happened overnight. In the weeks following Admiral Chen's presentation, the galaxy had experienced what historians would later call the silent crisis, a period when normal diplomatic activities ground to a halt, while every major power reassessed their relationship with humanity. Elena entered the council chamber and took her seat at the human table. It was no longer at the back of the room. Someone had moved it to the front row, directly facing the Chancellor's podium. The symbolism was unmistakable. Humanity was no longer a junior member seeking approval from established powers. Chancellor Vexmoran called the session to order. The ancient being looked tired, as if the events of recent months had aged him considerably. The council reconvenes to hear the final terms of the new galactic compact. Elena stood and activated her personal communication device. Admiral Chen's hologram appeared beside her, as it had for every session since the revelation of humanity's true military capabilities. "Thank you, Chancellor," Elena began. "Admiral Chen and I are pleased to present the final draft of what Earth proposes to call the Galactic Cooperation Framework." The holographic display above the chamber showed the text of the proposed agreement. Elena had spent weeks negotiating the details with representatives from every major galactic power. The document was shorter than most people had expected, just 12 pages that would fundamentally restructure galactic civilization. "The core principle is simple," Elena continued. "Every species with faster-than-light capability and established interstellar colonies will be recognized as a sovereign power with equal voice in galactic affairs. Territorial disputes will be resolved through mediation rather than military action. Technology sharing will be voluntary, not coercive." She looked around the chamber at the assembled delegates. Many of them still showed signs of the shock they had experienced when humanity's true capabilities were revealed. The Zephyrian representative had barely spoken in weeks. The crystalline collective maintained patterns of nervous energy across their crystal forms. "The framework also establishes protocols for bringing new species into the galactic community," Admiral Chen added. "No more treating emerging civilizations as junior partners or potential vassals. Every species that achieves interstellar travel will be welcomed as equals." The machine collective representative spoke first. "What guarantees does humanity offer that this new framework will not be used to establish human hegemony over the galaxy?" Elena smiled. "The same guarantee every other species offers, our word and our reputation. But if you need something more concrete, the framework includes verification protocols and mutual defense clauses." "Mutual defense?" asked the Ethereal Consortium delegate. "If any species attempts to conquer or subjugate another framework signatory, all other signatories are obligated to provide assistance to the victim," Admiral Chen explained. "This applies to humanity as well. If we ever become the aggressors, every other species in the galaxy would be treaty-bound to oppose us." The Aquatic Alliance representative leaned forward. "And if a species chooses not to sign the framework, then they continue operating under the current system," Elena replied. "No coercion, no pressure, but framework signatories will receive preferential treatment in trade agreements, technology sharing, and diplomatic relations." Elena noticed that several delegates were nodding thoughtfully. The framework offered them something they had never experienced before: genuine security. Under the old system, smaller powers lived in constant fear of being absorbed by larger ones. The new agreement promised protection for everyone. "The territorial issue remains problematic," said the Zephyrian representative quietly. It was the first time he had spoken in weeks. "The hegemony still requires additional space for our expanding population. And the framework addresses that," Elena assured him. "Article 7 establishes the Galactic Development Commission. Instead of seizing territory from other species, expanding civilizations can apply for assistance in developing new worlds. The commission will help identify suitable planets, provide colonization technology, and coordinate development efforts. Admiral, Chen manipulated the holographic display to show star charts of unexplored regions. The galaxy contains millions of habitable worlds that remain unclaimed. With proper coordination and resource sharing, there's room for everyone to expand without conflict. What does humanity gain from this arrangement? Asked the Insectoid Confederation delegate. You've revealed superior military capabilities. You could simply take whatever you wanted. Elena paused, considering how to explain something that alien. Species had struggled to understand about humanity. We gain the galaxy we actually want to live in, she said finally. Humans don't dream of conquest and domination. We dream of exploration, discovery, and cooperation. We want to learn from other species and share what we've learned. We want our children to grow up in a universe where different civilizations work together instead of fighting each other. But you prepared for war, pointed out the Crystalline Collective. We prepared for war so we could have peace, Admiral Chen replied. The strongest warriors are often the most peaceful people because they understand the true cost of conflict. Humanity spent 50 years building the capability to defend ourselves, not because we love fighting, but because we love everything that's worth fighting for. Chancellor Vex Morin stood slowly. The framework represents a fundamental change in how galactic civilization operates. The Council must vote on whether to accept these proposals. Before you vote, Elena said, I want to share one final piece of information. The holographic display changed to show a detailed analysis of galactic conflicts over the past 1,000 years. The data was sobering. Hundreds of wars, millions of casualties, entire species driven to extinction by territorial disputes and resource conflicts. This is what the old system has accomplished, Elena said quietly. A millennium of struggle where the strong prey on the weak and everyone lives in fear. The framework offers an alternative, a galaxy where strength is used to protect others instead of exploiting them. She looked directly at the Zephyrian representative. Admiral Kethvar, you're a warrior. You understand that the greatest victory isn't defeating your enemies. It's creating a world where you don't need enemies. The Admiral met her gaze and nodded slowly. For the first time since his defeat, he looked like the proud military leader she remembered. The Council will now vote on the Galactic Cooperation Framework, Chancellor Vex Morin announced. All in favor? Elena held her breath as lights appeared on the voting display. One by one, the major galactic powers registered their approval. The Zephyrian hegemony voted yes. The Crystalline Collective voted yes. The Machine Collective voted yes. When the final vote was tallied, the framework had passed with unanimous approval. The motion carries, Chancellor Vex Morin announced. The Galactic Cooperation Framework is hereby adopted as the governing charter for interstellar relations. Applause filled the chamber, not the polite diplomatic clapping Elena was used to, but genuine celebration. Delegates stood and cheered in dozens of languages. Even the normally reserved Machine Collective representatives were emitting electronic sounds that might have been joy. As the celebration continued, Elena found herself approached by Admiral Kethvar. The Zephyrian leader towered over her, but his expression was respectful rather than threatening. Ambassador Vasquez, he said formally, I owe you an apology. I underestimated your species and paid the price for that arrogance. Admiral, Elena replied, you fought with honor under difficult circumstances. There's nothing to apologize for. There is, he insisted. I treated humanity as children playing with toys they didn't understand. I should have recognized that any species clever enough to achieve FTL travel in 2 centuries was too dangerous to dismiss. Elena smiled. Well, you know what they say. The best way to learn about someone is to fight them. I'm glad we can be allies instead of enemies. Kethvar's expression shifted to something that might have been amusement. Indeed. Perhaps you could teach my officers some of those tactical maneuvers your ships used. For purely academic purposes, of course. I'm sure something can be arranged. Elena agreed. As the session ended and delegates began filing out, Elena remained in her seat. Admiral Chen's hologram flickered beside her. Congratulations, Ambassador, Chen said quietly. You've just helped create a new form of galactic civilization. We all did, Elena corrected. This only works if everyone participates willingly. She looked around the chamber at the departing delegates. Many of them were already deep in conversation, discussing implementation details and cooperation opportunities. The atmosphere was different from any council session she had ever attended, optimistic instead of suspicious, collaborative instead of competitive. What happens next? Elena asked. Now we prove that the framework actually works, Chen replied. The easy part was getting everyone to agree. The hard part is making sure it leads to the galaxy we promised. Elena nodded. Over the coming months, humanity would need to demonstrate that they could be trusted with the power they had revealed. Other species would be watching for any sign that humans were using their military superiority to gain unfair advantages. Admiral, Elena said, I want you to begin sharing some of our defensive technologies with other framework signatories. Nothing that could be used offensively, but systems that would help them protect their own worlds. Chen raised an eyebrow. That's a significant gesture of trust. Trust has to start somewhere. If we want the other species to believe in cooperation, we need to show them what it looks like. As Elena left the council building, she reflected on the journey that had brought humanity to this point. 50 years of careful planning, intelligence gathering, and strategic deception had culminated in a single moment when the galaxy learned the truth about human capabilities. But the real victory wasn't military. It was the fact that humanity had used their strength to create something better instead of simply dominating others. The galaxy had indeed fallen silent, not in fear, but in contemplation of possibilities they had never imagined. For the first time in millennia, the great powers of the galaxy were working together instead of plotting against each other. Elena walked through the alien city toward the human embassy. Tomorrow she would begin the process of transitioning from her role as ambassador to the council to her new position as humanity's first galactic cooperation commissioner. There would be challenges ahead, implementing the framework, managing conflicts between species with very different values, proving that cooperation could work on an interstellar scale. But tonight, she was content to walk through the city and watch alien beings from dozens of worlds going about their lives in peace. Human children played in parks alongside Zephyrian youth and crystalline offspring. Trade negotiations were being conducted in a spirit of mutual benefit rather than exploitation. Scientific researchers were planning joint expeditions to explore the galaxy's mysteries. This was what humanity had been fighting for all along, not dominance, but the chance to be part of something larger than themselves. They had prepared for war so thoroughly that when the moment came, they had been able to choose peace from a position of strength. The galaxy would never be the same, and Elena thought that was exactly as it should be.